Good day, everybody. This is Peretz Eichler, Straight Talk America News. And as we look around the world, we know that there's a lot of problems in education, with raising our kids, keeping our adults happy. There are a lot of problems in the world that stem from the educational system, the world at large, and in particular, in our community. We know that there are rising problems that have reared their heads and that a lot of times have been ignored. But you cannot ignore the consequences of these problems, as evidenced by an article last week that appeared on The Scoop, in which a mother responded by talking about the horrendous death of one of her children, which she did not in any small way diminish the responsibility of what took place during the education of her youngster and the inability of the system to deal with his own individual needs and to break out of the mold so that he would be able to get the education that he needed. And then when he didn't, it just led to problems which mushroomed and then manifest themselves through an overdose. Now, you can't blame an educational system for a child taking an overdose, but we can blame a system that ignores the scope and breadth of the various needs of individuals and not trying to make a child fit the mold if it doesn't work and look for an alternative system. We try to make a child rather than break the child. And that problem has been addressed by educators worldwide, but in particular, there is an educational consultant in Montreal. His name is Rabbi Rabbi Abenson, and he himself has now been a consultant to many educational institutions and to parents and individuals who realize that something has to be done, that you have to deal with the problem, first of all, acknowledge that there's a problem, and then address the problem by applying real-world solutions. Rabbi Abenson is a respected educator around the world and has recently really been publicized because of the wonderful work that he's doing in addressing the problem head-on and providing solutions. Rabbi Abenson, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for being here.
Well, let me ask you out of the starting gate, what is it that prompted you to start taking on these issues that you felt that not enough was being done? First of all, let's define the issue. What do you see the core problems facing us in the Jewish world at large in terms of how we're educating our kids, and can we say that the system at large is not really meeting up to what it needs to do? Can we say that in some degree that it is failing as much as it is succeeding?
That's a very good question. I would like to say that the main core, which we really have to work on, is, it might surprise people who are listening. I'll go to the extreme. It's not the internet. It's really the Aleph-Bais. The Aleph-Bais, unfortunately, is not being addressed. We really should make an istifa to bring back the traditional way of teaching the Aleph-Bais.
Well, what do you mean the traditional? What do you mean by the traditional way of the Aleph-Bais? How is the Aleph-Bais, in other than metaphorical terms? You're talking about the literal way that the Aleph-Bais is being taught. That's a pretty powerful statement. Can you tell me what you mean by that?
Kometz Aleph O, full stop. We don't need to confuse the children, make Aleph-Bais complicated. It's in some cases, when I'm dealing with children, even students, going over the Aleph-Bais with them, they look at the one boy was saying the Aleph-Bais, and he turned his face to his cuff on his arm. So we're looking at that for, because my Mora told me to remember the cuff. You look at your arm. You see? So what's happening with the boys? We put a lot of emphasis of abstract information, phonic sounds, etc., and all this type of things. So it confuses the child, so he doesn't get a strong basis for the Aleph-Bais. That's one thing. And the other thing is, a lot of institutions, the Litvish institutions, like having Hasidic Rebbeim teaching the Aleph-Bais for the warmth, etc. That's great, but they really have to check before they bring them in if they know how to pronounce the letters correctly. I have many, many cases where boys Ashkenazi boys, Hasidic boys have mixed up Ivra because the Rebbeim were teaching them their way, but really it's meant to be the other way. So this has to be addressed, because the whole problem with children not enjoying the learning is the fact is that they don't get the clarity, the simplicity, Aleph-Bais, clear in the mind at a young age.
Well, that's certainly vitally important, but how does that then develop into other problems which cause even a more complicated set of issues?
So what happens if the boys or children or girls do not receive the proper foundation of the Aleph-Bais, and which happens many times around the world, they go to the next stage. Before they know the Aleph-Bais, they're taught the vowels, Nekudos, right? But they don't know the letters properly to register the vowels properly, to put them both together. And then, before they even got the vowels properly, start reading. And then the problem with that is they start reading in syllables, but they can't read properly because they don't know the letters properly. And even if they do know the letters, they don't know it well enough to be able to put the letters together. And then the time when they start reading in a syllable format, opposed to whole word reading, and therefore they don't build up a strategy of a vocabulary bank in their mind to be able to translate. So the time when it comes to 9 or 10, they could be reading syllables without translation skills, and therefore they don't really understand the text, what they're reading and comprehending.
Well, how would you propose to change this? I mean, you're talking about a revolutionary upheaval within the school system. So where are you starting?
I'm only saying to go back how it used to be. If we can only put this back into the system, we don't need extra schools. We have to train the teachers properly how to teach the Aleph-Bais in a clear, concise manner. And that will solve most problems in the reading.
Okay, so you're talking about reading. Now, are you already instituting this idea, or are you making any headway in getting it into any major yeshivas around the country, around the world?
That's a very good question. Because the program is very, very powerful, I have to tread very carefully in my program. Because most schools, as you know, all schools are doing great. And therefore, if somebody comes in to tell them to upgrade the actual Aleph-Bais system in the school, that shows incompetence on the wider spectrum of the school, which is very hard sometimes to get into the school because of that. That's why I mentioned at the beginning, the Rabbanim have to get together and make a tremendous asifa. To get the Aleph-Bais, we have to work on the Aleph-Bais to make sure the kids know the Aleph-Bais before they go even further. One cannot teach any vowels, anything, till the boys know the Aleph-Bais fluently. Now, what I mean by fluently, it doesn't mean that it takes them a minute or 2 minutes to say the Aleph-Bais. They have to be fluent, seconds to be able to say the Aleph-Bais without any hesitation. It should become effortless. And I guarantee you, from my track record of doing this for many, many years, if we work on this, it's very simple. A lot of problems with children later on in life will decrease drastically. That would include medication, everything you name it, what we give psychologists, psychiatrists, and all the boys go to, etc. You won't need any of that. Special needs will cut down the money, the financial aspect of the schools, sponsoring a lot of nowadays, a lot of children go into remediation. That would be cut down drastically. The children will be able to taught properly the Aleph-Bais. Now, we're not discussing at the moment. That's one aspect, but we're not discussing are the teachers clear or not. That's another aspect. But this is one aspect which needs to be addressed.
Have you seen, in your personal experience, the program which you're putting forth? Have you implemented it in any degree, either on an individual or institutional basis, where you've been able to measure or track this type of success? I presume that if you're talking about it, that this is not purely theoretical or experimental, that you've taken your idea, which I'm sure has been validated by proper Torah authorities.
Yes.
But have you actually implemented it in any manner, shape, or form with either individuals or within the school system?
Yes. So my track record has been phenomenal. You can check on my website, shahartalmud.com, and you see there's a number of referrals there. again, I mentioned too about the school system, right? The school system, it's very difficult for institutions to admit they have issues with their system. That's the biggest issue we have in the school system. And therefore, a lot of what I do on a private basis, not relating to the school per se. Schools who are interested, I go into on a private basis. But it's very as I mentioned too, I mentioned just before, the schools have to. That's why I mentioned to you that we should really have the rabbanim on this, like we have with the internet. The schools wouldn't do anything too much with the internet till the rabbanim got together and said, now we have to work on the internet. All the schools got together and put these ideas into school. Not one's not allowed to have internet in the school or house or whatever, etc. We have the rabbanim on our generation really have to get together and to emphasize the importance of the Aleph-Bais. The Vilna Gaon would stand up for his Rebbe who taught him the Aleph-Bais, as the saying goes. Not his other Rebbanim, only the Rebbe who taught him the Aleph-Bais. Because he said, if I wouldn't have the Rebbe who taught me properly the Aleph-Bais, I wouldn't be where I am today. So this has to be addressed.
Certainly it does, but going beyond the Aleph-Bais, which is the foundation of everything, you also talk about a concept called the box child. How we kind of box our children into a certain category. Can you describe that to me, what you mean by a box child and that philosophy of education and what needs to be done to counter that?
One of my articles I titled The Box Child, which went viral in the Lakewood Scoop and all around the world. This is a major issue which we have in our system today, and that is, Shlomo Melech says, Al pi dar choy. A child has to be taught according to his ability, not Abidarchem, according to their methodology, right? Unfortunately, because of the Galus, etc., we, in our school system, unfortunately, have taken a lot of non-Jewish philosophy in teaching Hebrew subjects. And that's a big problem, because it's similar to how the Goyim teach their children, and we teach our children, which is completely different. But no, in the Goyish world, they only look at the top boys who get the best marks, 100% in their exams, right? That's how the Goyim work. And we do the same thing. The child has to get 100%. If he's not that 100% child, he's not worth anything, which is not true. In Judaism, every child has potential. So we have to restructure our thought process in teaching our children. We have to go back to the Messiahs of how to teach, Api Dar Choy and Api Dar Chem, which would create a much better environment for our children. And which I did mention in my article, that if Moshe Feinstein, Moshe Shapiro, and the Lubavitch Rebbe would be in our generation, I believe they would be in the rehab today, because these were brilliant kids, brilliant minds, and they were taught privately. They couldn't deal with them in the classroom setting. And I know somebody in particularly, a number of people have come to me over the years, I don't want to say which community it is. There's a boy who's a genius like them. He's 14 years old, he knows Shas, and he's medicated because he can't fit into the box. And therefore this boy needs to be stretched more. And that's the problem we have. We have to really consider what was still lacking unfortunately from the Holocaust. We lost a lot of tradition of teaching from the Holocaust, which is in my previous articles I wrote about that too.
So what would you like to see done at this juncture in terms of both individuals and families, people that might be listening to this, to be able to remedy the problem, at least within the context of their own family? If you're not going to be able to start the revolution all over the place in institutions, maybe you have to start at grassroots. Well, you're certainly getting a response from people on a grassroots level. Well, what do you think parents who are running into this problem, encountering it now, and perhaps being frustrated by not being able to have the school respond in the way that they'd like, what should a parent who finds himself in that type of quandary do?
What should they do? Well, they should try their very best to find out if the child's happy in school. If he's not happy in school, right, then you have to find out what reasons why he's not happy in school. Most times, I found why the children are not happy in school because the skills are lacking. right? Therefore, they have to address that. If they want, they can come to us, and we can rearrange things for them, help them out in certain aspects, and help them in their study and get the child back onto track, right? But really what they should do, it's really going to be with the parents. If they want to make a revolution in this sense, they have to get together. And as I mentioned, I have to mention this many times over, we have to make an asifa to the importance of this. And the schools have to get together to appreciate this. But we have to do it with the Rabbanim. We can't do it without the Rabbanim, and also the people who fund the schools. Without that, it's not going to work in a large scale. But on a private scale, it can be done.
Well, we'll be looking forward to hearing about more how this is going to start taking shape and taking place. I know you've been getting a large-scale reaction from people, as evidenced by what we saw on the scoop last week, and I'm sure you're getting more of it. We'd like to hear more about it. People who would like to get more information can contact you. Can you give us your contact information, Rabbi Abenson?
Yeah. So my website is sharhatalmud.com. My email is abenson.kriah, Kriah, @gmail.com. And if they would like to contact me, my free phone number is 1-877-HaTalmud. That's 428-2568.
All right, Rabbi David Abenson, thank you very much for joining us here on the Lakewood Scoop and Straight Talk America. We hope that you'll have a lot of hatzlacha and much success in helping as many children and families as possible that will fortify the next door by getting the proper education, the foundations, the Aleph-Bais, as you say, both literally and figuratively. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.